Gators, and sports fans get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Monday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Hope everyone had a great weekend. A lot of stuff to watch on TV. Obviously, Major League Baseball, NBA's in full force, and a tremendous PGA championship on the PGA Tour. Hopefully you watched that. It was outstanding. Anyway, let's go. We got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to kick it off here in just a second with Zach Abolverdi, who covers the Gators for Rivals.com. Talk a little bit about what's going on in college football and obviously some recruits that the Gators have had commit to the second portion. We're going to stick with golf today. We're going to go with former PGA Tour player who's now on the Senior Tour, UF Hall of Famer Dudley Hart. But let's get straight to the Titan of our hotline. And we're joined by our good friend, Zach Abolverdi. Good morning, Zach. How are you?
What's going on, Shane? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I had a restless day yesterday. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed watching golf all day, but this college football stuff is driving me insane. But before we get to what's going on, Zach, let's talk about some good news on the Gators front. Some of the recruits that they had commit here recently. Obviously, they got a big one out of was it Jason Marshall, defensive back?
Yeah, it was huge news yesterday, Shane. I mean, he's a guy that's kind of been one of the top names that fans have followed in this recruiting cycle, just because he's clearly been one of their top targets. He's a guy that could come in and help fill a position of need, especially if they lose Marco Wilson after this season. But what's interesting about his recruitment, Shane, is that, if you followed it, he kind of had things trending toward Miami here in the last, week. There was some buzz out there about the Hurricanes that kind of generated around the end of last month, the beginning of August. And all 14 Rivals future cast predictions for him since August 1st had been to Miami. So everybody expected him to go to Miami. And then he just jumps on Twitter Sunday and puts up this edit that he's committed to Florida. Now, mind you, his other finalists were Alabama, LSU, and Oregon, but Alabama was really the biggest threat. I had heard through much of his recruitment that it was a Florida-Alabama battle. And most people didn't expect him to stay close to home. I think the pandemic kind of gave Miami a shot. And like I said, for the first week of this month, all the analysts and recruiting reporters were predicting him to end up at UM. So this is a big recruiting victory for Dan Mullen and his staff to go into Miami-Dade and land somebody that the hometown team wanted and Alabama wanted.
Sticking with recruiting for a minute, are we expecting any more announcements here in the next couple of days of any kids possibly coming to the University of Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. Today is another big day. Marshall's teammate, who is the number one safety on Rivals.com and a 5-star recruit, Corey Collier Jr., he's scheduled to make his decision today. That's going to be at 2 p.m. That he'll announce. And it's a Florida-Miami LSU battle. That's his 3 finalists. Probably a Florida-Miami battle. And, honestly, if you kind of asked a lot of folks maybe last week, given the way that Marshall was trending to Miami and the fact, Shane, that the Hurricanes just landed 2 of their teammates, 4-star wide receiver Brashad Smith, who used to be committed to Florida, and then 5-star defensive tackle Leonard Taylor, both guys from Miami Palmetto. They're part of that Palmetto 5. It's a group of 5 guys that are in the class of 2021. They're all highly rated. 3 of them are 5 stars. So Florida's tried to get some of those guys, and right now 3 of them had been committed to Miami. And the way things were shaping up, it looked like maybe Marshall and potentially Corey Collier might be joining their 3 teammates at UM. But with Marshall's decision yesterday, that kind of, mixes things up a little bit and creates some suspense for today's decision. So Collier will definitely be one for fans to watch out for today. Like I said, on our website, he's the #1 safety in the country and a 5-star.
Let me ask this. Basically, it's 5 5-stars we're talking about for Miami Palmetto, correct?
Yes. I mean, I think 3 of them are 5-stars, and then the receiver and then the other defensive tackle is a 4.
What was their record last year?
Man, I don't know the record, but I know they definitely made a playoff run.
I've never. I mean, I've heard of the school, but I've never heard of Miami Palmetto doing a whole lot in the playoffs. And good gracious, if you have that many players, you should be winning a lot more games, in my opinion. So sticking with recruiting, Zach, with the pandemic going on and all this stuff, I don't know if you talk to high school kids as much as you used to. What's their thought process of being concerned about whether their senior year in high school is going to be played, even college football being played? What's the talk among the high school athletes?
I think for a lot of it, it's like the college athletes, at least that we saw yesterday, they want to play. And I think the resources certainly and the ability to make that happen on the high school level is totally different than what we're talking about with Power 5 programs. So I'm sure it's a really difficult situation for these guys to be in. Certainly for the ones that haven't committed yet and don't have a lot of offers and are going to be, seniors this season, they were looking forward to being able to go out there this fall and compete, not just for their team and for themselves, but maybe to potentially to have the opportunity to get recruited. So it's tough. And then I think, to be honest, for the guys that are being recruited and have decisions to make, there's no doubt that the pandemic is having an effect. I mentioned Leonard Taylor, the 5-star defensive tackle from Miami Palmetto, who just committed to the Hurricanes last week. Shane, he was a guy that at one point Florida was viewed as the favorite for him because he had taken a bunch of visits to UF. He was speaking very highly of David Turner. And then the pandemic hit, things shut down. He stops taking visits. He's staying right there in Miami. And this is a kid that grew up a diehard Hurricanes fan. And, I think being close to home these last few months and not being able to go visit any schools or see anything probably in many ways helped Miami's chances, and maybe they gained some ground on Florida. So I think the pandemic has definitely had an effect. I will say that Florida and their staff have done a good job navigating through it. They really knocked it out of the park with the virtual visits that they did. And now we're seeing the results here with guys like Jason Marshall.
We're speaking with Zach Abolverdi. You can follow him on Twitter at Zach Abolverdi. He covers the Gators for Rivals.com. All right, to what's going on with college football. I've kind of kept my mouth shut, Zach, during this whole pandemic, but now it's getting ridiculous. I understand about safety. The kids that play college football are in the safest environment they possibly will ever be in their entire lives. They are taken care of like you have no idea. If they do not play college football this year, and these kids, it's going to be virtual classes, these kids are going to go back home. They ain't going to make it. They're not going to stick with their classes. Who knows what's going to happen to them? Football is a way out for these majority of these kids. I am getting ticked off severely now because I've been in those locker rooms. I know how important athletics are to a majority of these athletes to change their lives. And I just don't understand the decisions some of these presidents are making. It's not right, in my opinion, because kids are going to get sick if they're on campus. Kids are going to die from drinking and drugs and all that. They have a better chance of dying from that kind of stuff than they do from playing football or playing a sport. There's plenty of AAU basketball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, summer baseball going on right now, and nobody's getting sick and dying. I'm just fed up with it, and I don't quite understand it.
Yeah, it's crazy because you watch the news, and at least before yesterday, a lot of it had been negative. Just kind of where things were trending and what the chances were looking like for fall sports. And then yesterday, man, the players really, really spoke out. And, they started this "we want to play" movement, and you had players from all five Power Five conferences, come out and join this on social media, and some very outspoken names like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and some heavy hitters that came out and obviously kind of spoke. And I think Trevor spoke most eloquently, just kind of acknowledging certainly the risk and everything that's involved, but saying that these guys basically were saying that, we, at least at the Power Five level, and I think it's very important to say that at the Power Five level, I think some players express that they feel confident with all the measures that their programs are taking, all the resources that their programs have at the Power Five level, that they're going to be able to stay safe, and that they're going to be able to, have the testing and all the measures that need to be put in place so that they can have a season. And now, again, granted, maybe that's not as easy to do for other conferences, and not everybody's like the SEC, but clearly we heard a very strong voice from players, not just from the SEC, but like I said, all five conferences, that they want to find a way for these programs and these conference commissioners to make it work. And looking at Kyrie Campbell yesterday, Florida's defensive tackle, I mean, you talk about guys, for many of them, this being their way out. Kyrie kind of expressed, Florida's starting defensive tackle, that, I understand that we're living in a pandemic and things are rough. And then he said something along the lines of, I've been living in a pandemic my whole life. Just kind of speaking to his struggles that he's gone through living and growing up. So a lot of these guys, I think it's, even if they have to sign something, or even if they have to, acknowledge the risk of COVID and still go out there and play, it sounds like yesterday some guys are willing to do that right here on the Florida football team. I mean, Lorenzo Lingard, the new running back transfer from Miami, Shane, he even tweeted, he goes, "I don't care if I got to be in a bubble, I want to play. I mean, even if I got to be locked down all season so that we can make it happen." So I think guys are starting to sense that things are getting close.
Yeah, it's a shame, because I've experienced what it's like to be a college athlete. I know what they're going through. They are as safe in an environment as anybody in America, except for probably the NBA guys that are in the bubble. And if you cancel football, it's not just football. Let's back up. It's every college sport pretty much they're going to cancel. Okay. These kids are not going to hang around in Gainesville or Tuscaloosa or wherever. They're going to go back home, and who knows what's going to happen to them there. You have a better chance of, there's a risk, like I said, driving to your local hardware store. There's a risk driving to the Publix. There's a risk anytime you walk out on that football field before there was this pandemic. And I'm just telling you that it blows my mind now how I just don't quite understand where they're going with this, because you got to also consider the mental health of these collegiate athletes. I think a lot of people forget that they're very structured in their everyday life. It's been disrupted, and the kids are having trouble with it. If you tell them they're not able to do what they've done their entire life and has a chance to make them make a living, I just don't think it's right.
Now, Shane, I got a question for you, because this is something that I asked Scott Strickland. Because the one topic of conversation that's kind of been out there is, and this is something that he said, is that with students coming back to campus this fall, you can't really create a quote unquote bubble. But, is there a way to put these guys in a semi bubble? And before, people say, well, you can't keep players locked on campus and keep them isolated from the student body. I don't know if people realize that happens every single year for fall training camp. The team is in a team hotel. They're not on campus. They're under curfew. They go to two-a-days, and they are literally isolated. So it's not like that doesn't happen. Now, I don't know how you would do that for a whole football season, obviously. Scott Strickland said, we're not going to put the guys in a hotel. but there has to be so many measures that they can take to either sequester athletes on campus, try to keep them in the facilities, have them on curfew certain days of the week. A lot of guidelines that, now listen, maybe some players wouldn't want to follow in the fall. And if they didn't want to, maybe they can make the decision to not play, and obviously their scholarship would be honored. But for the guys that do, I mean, I just want your thoughts on if they put these measures in place and say, hey guys, if you want to play the season, these are the things you're going to have to follow. It's going to be kind of like training camp. I just think that there's some things that they could try to do.
They definitely could do that. And you bring up a good point. They could rent out the Hilton over there, and they'd have to have, their study hall, all their classes there. What I don't understand is, how is it safe for students to come back on campus and go to class than to go play a sport? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Well, and I just, they're smart enough, and there's a lot of people in there that, I mean, you could even have all that, because first of all, they're going to do a lot more online classes. There's not going to be as many in person, but for the classes that are in person, you can't tell me that they can't make it to where they have some classes where it's only football players, so that they're not mixing in with the student body if you're worrying about, potential exposure to that. I mean, there's just so many things that I think that they can do to try and make it work. I think the players would be willing to follow it. They'd have to make some sacrifices. They have to maybe give up some of their freedom that they usually have during the fall. But I think for most of them, if these are the things that they had to do, A, B, and C, to be able to play the season, I think majority of guys would do it.
Oh, I bet 99.9% of every athlete would do it. And I do think they could put the football team in a bubble. Now, is Vander, you'd have to make sure every school is doing that. And as you mentioned, I think all the Power 5 schools could do that. But I just, it's a shame, because what I don't understand is, and let me ask you this, Zach, because you deal with a lot of high school kids you have in the past. You see where a lot of these kids come from. Their way out and their way to make it is through athletics. If college football season is canceled this year, because I know for a fact players are frustrated right now because of all the meetings, the working out, but they're doing all this, but they don't know if they're actually going to be able to play, have a season, and it wears on you. So my point is, if they cancel the football season, yes, kids are still students, but let's be honest. Some of them ain't going to go to class. Some of them are going to go home, and they're supposed to take their online classes. They're not going to do it. And before you know it, that 5-star is not going to be a 5-star anymore, and he's going to be dropped out of school.
Yeah. And there's so many things. I mean, there's kids that, if, they're going into back home where areas that they live in aren't great, or they're going back home where they have some friends necessarily that maybe they shouldn't be hanging out with. Or they're going back home into just simply a household that doesn't have everything that it needs, whether that be from the food in the fridge. There's just so many things that, like you said, athletes just aren't as well taken care of, maybe at their hometown or where they grew up, as they would be at the UF campus. Now, that's not the case for every kid. And there are some players, there are some players that maybe would go back home and follow all the things that they need to do. But you and I both know that that's not going to happen. And it's just not even maybe what they would do or who they would be around. But like you said, maybe, the mental psyche, and then just physically, this time of year is when they're, competing at the hardest, and to have that kind of break in the action and be away from the facilities, it would have an impact.
Yeah, definitely. I'm living proof right here. My kid is a preferred walk-on, and he is taking better care of being a preferred walk-on in the nutrition and all that stuff than he was when he was living in my house. I mean, that goes to show you these student athletes are so well taken care of at the University of Florida and these other SEC institutions.
And they have routine,
Yes, that's where they need to be. And it is so safe. I don't think people realize how safe it is. They're in a bubble, but not in a bubble. But do you think there's any chance with what's going on that The Rock, who just purchased the XFL, can put together something as a minor league of these college players, that if college football is canceled, where they can showcase, get paid some money, like a stepping stone for the National Football League.
Well, I mean, I think the XFL would have to be that. It's a great hypothetical, because obviously with what he just did and what's going on, if there's not fall sports, there's not college football season. Shane, I mean, what are these seniors to be and juniors to be? How does that affect their draft status? How does that even affect the draft? Who knows? But if there's an opportunity for some of these guys that miss out on a college football season to showcase what they can do before they go through the NFL draft process, man, I mean, I'm sure guys would jump at that opportunity, especially if they miss on football this fall. But man, could The Rock or somebody else pull it off that soon to put together a league? I don't know, but I bet you there's somebody that's thinking about that.
Yeah, no doubt. We got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. David says, I've stated no or minimum fall football. It's spring football. David, it ain't going to be spring football either. There's not going to be any sports this year, is what these presidents are stating. So anyway, Zach, we appreciate you taking the time. Let everybody know where they can check out your podcast and all your good work.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter. Just search my name. But I would encourage everybody, if you've subscribed at Rivals before, or if you've been thinking about it, I'm telling everybody, now is the week to do it. We have some great stuff coming at GatorsTerritory.com. It's going to start today. So I'm just letting everyone know, if you're thinking about a time to sign up, and we have a deal going, you just buy 1 month, you get 2 more free. So basically all this fall, you could just have some coverage that you can check out. But I definitely encourage everybody to go to Gators Territory this week, because we got some series coming up that Gator fans are going to absolutely enjoy.
Good stuff, Zach. Appreciate you taking the time, my man. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, for sure, bud. Take care, man.
That's Zach Abolverdi. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida, and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're going to take our first time out of the program. When we come back, we'll be joined by former Gator great golfer and UF Hall of Famer, our man Dudley Hart. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button, or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators come to celebrate. With premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. Well, we're going to go to another guy who did a lot of celebrating during his career and still has, former Gator great golfer, Dudley Hart. Good morning, Dudley. How are you?
I'm good, Shane. How are you?
Doing well, man. Before we get into your career and what's going on in your world, let's talk a little golf yesterday. PGA Championship. I tell you what, I think so far with the restart, the PGA Tour's had some very competitive golf tournaments. Been fun to watch, and yesterday was outstanding.
Yeah, it was. I didn't get to watch much till the end, the last 9 holes or so, but they had it was good TV for sure. I mean, the guys were pulling off some good shots, and I've always loved how the PGA sets up their tournaments, because they're not out there to solely make sure nobody shoots under par like the USGA tends to try to do things, and no matter how goofy they have to make it, they don't want to see guys shooting 10 or 12 under par. And I don't know why that's a problem when it's the best players in the world, and if they're, you provide a stiff challenge and someone shoots 10 or 12 under and wins, so be it. And, so yesterday was fun to watch. I don't think everybody wants to always watch guys scramble to make pars all the time. They like to be able to see a drivable par 4 where Colin hit an amazing tee shot that basically won him the tournament. It was unreal. So normally you don't see that stuff in a lot of other majors. And it was a blast to watch for me.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Now, us average golfers, we like to see you boys struggle. Let's be honest. We do like to see it, but you're right. The drivable par 4s really make it intriguing. And let's talk about these young guns out there on tour now. Colin Morikawa, you got Cameron Champ, Matthew Wolf. These guys hit it so far. Now, DeChambeau hits it a long ways too, but he swings like he wants to hit a long ways. These other guys are smooth and hit it just as far. What is allowing these guys to hit it so far?
Well, I think a lot of it is I think it starts with equipment. I'm not saying the ball and the club are making the ball go that far. I mean, it does go further than when I was their age, but more importantly, they're allowed to learn to swing the club differently from a young age to create more speed, because obviously the driver heads are bigger. Anybody that's, our age that ever played a persimmon driver, if you didn't hit it in the middle of the face, the thing went nowhere. So you had to balance a certain amount of speed with a certain amount of control. These guys obviously still have a lot of control, but they just learn at a young age to swing fast. And my son's a perfect example. Not that he's a world beater or anything. He's 135 pounds and he's carrying the ball 290 to 300 every time now. And it's just learning to be fast, more of a spin and a rotational type swing than we were a little more linear back when I was their age.
Dudley, you grew up in the Buffalo, New York area. Obviously, I don't know this, but you had to be a hockey player growing up or something.
Yeah, definitely.
What got you into golf up there?
Well, my dad was a club pro. So I grew up, a pro shop rat in the summer, where I'd go out with my dad but in the wintertime, which is up in Buffalo, it's like 8 months long. So we played a lot of hockey. I played hockey for 9 years. We moved to Florida. My dad got a job at a nice club called Lagos on Miami Beach when I started high school. So we moved down to Florida, and that's when golf was, 12 months a year, 24/7.
And obviously you played golf at the University of Florida, and I think golf recruiting, it's a little bit different now, but it was probably really different back when you were coming out of high school. What other schools did you think about going to play at?
I went and, I'm not to toot my own horn and sound arrogant, but my senior year, I was the #1 junior in the country. So I got recruited, obviously, like you said, it's a lot different. We got letters in the mail and an occasional phone call and things like that. And it's golf. It's not football. So it's not quite as crazy, but, I got recruited from all over the place, but I went on my 5 visits were South Carolina, Georgia, LSU, Okie State, and in Florida. So that's where I went on my visits. So to be honest with you, my dad went to Florida 100 years ago. I even living in Buffalo, I remember being a Gator fan, and once in a while when a game was on TV, we'd sit down and watch. So I kind of was always my dream school, and when I got offered and went up for a visit, I just fell in love with it and that was pretty much where I was going even before I made all my trips.
Talk a little bit about your career here at Florida. You were on some really good golf teams. Chris DeMarco, your former teammate we've had on our show, talked about y'all had a coaching change, or y'all went, I don't know if you were part of it, but Chris said he went to, I want to say it was Bill Arnsberger at the time, about y'all needed a new coach. And then Buddy Alexander comes in. Talk a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, that was halfway through our sophomore year. So Lynn Blevins is the coach that recruited Chris and I. We were there all 4 years together. And Lynn, our freshman year was a train wreck, especially for a golf team. You think golfers, you should be kind of pretty good kids doing all the right things. And we had some misfits, some kids who were failing out of school, getting kicked off the team. And we went to NCAAs, and we actually only had 5 eligible golfers. And funny story, Todd Haley, the football coach, was on our golf team, and he played NCAAs my freshman year because he was kind of the last man standing type of thing. Nothing against Todd, but his golf game was not as good as his coaching game. So
it's funny you bring that up, because one of my years in Chicago as a coaching change, and Todd Haley comes in as a wide receiver coach.
Yep.
I think he was an assistant or something with the Jets at some portion. And he comes and introduces himself. He's like, "Yeah, I'm a Gator. I played on the golf team." I go, "You did what?" I was like, "You're coaching football and you played college golf. That makes no sense."
Yeah. But, yeah. I don't even know how he transitioned from that. I know his dad was with, I think, the Steelers forever as a scout, maybe, or
right.
but in some form. But so he obviously had a football background, and we knew that a little bit in college. But it kind of caught me off guard when all of a sudden I saw, he's a coordinator somewhere, and I'm going, "What the hell?" I said, "I got some good stories about that guy."
Yeah, no doubt. Well, talk a little bit about Buddy Alexander. He was a tremendous college golf coach for a long time. What did he do for your career?
Well, when Buddy came in, very intense, competitive guy, pretty strict, pretty, intimidating for a golf coach. Obviously, he didn't scream and yell at us much, but, he demanded respect, and we respected him because he had won the U.S. Amateur. He was a really accomplished golfer. And for me personally, where Buddy helped me the most, I was a kid, coming with a father who was my teacher, my swing coach, and taught me everything I knew. I didn't need I was a pretty focused kid. I didn't screw around a lot. I had fun and did my things, but I was pretty mature at that age as far as my golf goes. Maybe not my school as much, but as my golf goes. And I didn't need him to tell me to practice, tell me to do this, but where he helped me a ton was routines. Kind of like I describe it to. I'm sure you had your routines. It's kind of like shooting great free throw shooters. They do the same thing every single time, and they practice it that way. And back then people didn't talk about that as much. And it's game management on the golf course, where to hit shots, what are you thinking here, doing stuff like that. That's where he helped me a ton. Just the actual skill and art of playing golf and managing a golf course for your game, because everyone's golf game is slightly different, and we all like to hit certain shots, whether it's at a pro level or amateur level, and certain shots are a challenge for us. And you have to be mature and disciplined enough to understand that that's not my forte right there. So maybe we play a little more conservative and you get after the next one.
Gotcha. Talk a little bit about, I think in '89, y'all almost won the national title. You lose to some guy named Phil Mickelson in Arizona State, I believe.
Yep.
You lose by 2 shots?
Lost by 2. Yeah, we had I can't remember exactly what we shot on the back nine, but we had a disappointing back nine, and really, truly probably should have won that tournament. It was a really sad moment. I remember sitting on that. We played at Innisbrook on the Island course, and I remember being on the back of that 18th green when it was over, and we kind of pissed it away a little bit, and then realizing that my college golf career and my college life was over. And and all of us that have played college sports have gone through it, and it was a super emotional time for all of us. And because college was the best time of my life, I say to this day. And it's to have that be over and to kind of go into the real world was scary. But I actually never ended up going in the real world because I made it on tour right away, and I've been playing a game for a living my whole life.
Yeah, I was going to talk about you turned pro. And I have so much respect for professional golfers because especially the ones that aren't the big names that have all the the commercials and the clubs, sponsors, everybody has sponsorships, but they get paid, a lot of endorsements.
Yeah.
Because you got to go golf your ball to
Yep.
make money. Talk about how hard it is to make it on the PGA Tour.
Well, it's only getting harder because the kids are getting there. Like we talked about these young guns, and they're so much more prepared coming out of college than I was for that. I, was lucky and made it right out of the gate, and my head was spinning for the first month. But I feel like getting out there, I've always said, is the hardest. To me, when you get out there, you really, if you can not make it bigger than it is. So it's we're not doing brain surgery here, and the golf courses might be a little harder, but just because you're playing with, all these guys that you watched growing up doesn't mean that you need to approach playing golf differently. So basically don't make it bigger than it is. And which is a trick. Some people don't know how to do that, and some people do. And I think that is one of the main reasons why some people stay out for a long time and some don't, because you don't have to play. I mean, to keep your job, you really don't have to play that great over the course of the year. You just have to, when you're playing good, you got to let yourself play good. And as dumb as that may sound, some people get on Saturdays and they're, in the second to last group, third to last group, last group, whatever, they get tighter or start trying more, trying harder, which doesn't work in our game. And you just have to, when you're playing well, get out of your own way and just and get after it.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We're speaking with Dudley Hart, former Gator great, on the senior tour right now on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. Dudley, you won a couple of times on the PGA Tour, but you've had some serious back issues. Talk about how difficult that was to go through, to play through that pain, and then you finally had some surgeries that obviously they fixed you.
Yeah, well, it was a long process. I had to have 2 surgeries with the same surgery, but I hurt my back. Never had a back problem until I went over to the British Open at St. Andrews in 2000, and we actually went to Ireland, Jess Lumen, Tim Hare, and myself, and some of our buddies to practice before the British Open to get some links golf in and maybe a couple cocktails along the way. But I actually hurt my back while I was in Ireland. I hit a shot at Royal County Down and felt like I got stabbed in the back. I mean, I'd never felt anything like that, and just struggled. I went to St. Andrews, didn't play much the rest of the last day. It basically was of that trip, and I went to St. Andrews, didn't play a practice round, walked around, chipped and putted, was getting therapy, and ended up being a herniated disc. And I played 2 rounds. Somehow made the cut. The ground's concrete over there, so every shot was basically just a jolt down my leg, and it would calm down while I walked a few steps, and then it would be back. So anyway, I just kind of battled through it and made the cut somehow, but then played about 6 or 7 holes on Saturday, and I didn't know what I was doing to myself at the time. I didn't know, and we're so far away from our people and guys that could help me out that. And I wasn't going to beat anybody. I made the cut on the number, and I was going to shoot $1 million. So I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing to my back. So I withdrew and went home and found out I had a herniated disc and managed it pretty well for about 10 years. And then it just got to the point, and I think it was 2009. After I knew something was wrong, but I finished in the top 30 the year before, and so I was eligible for all the majors, including the Masters. And I didn't even want to go to a doctor until after Augusta because I didn't want to know. And I knew something wasn't right because I couldn't practice, couldn't play. I could practice, but not the way I wanted to and not the way I was used to. And I had to really, hit balls one day, take a day off kind of thing. And so after the Masters, I found out that I had no disc left. I was bone on bone in my L5S1 level, bone spurs, pinched nerve, all kinds of stuff. So they said 2 doctors told me to quit playing golf. And I looked at one of them, and go quit being a doctor. I'm like, what else am I going to do? Go flip hamburgers at Burger King or something? And so I found a guy that said, fusion. He thought the fusion was an option and was the only option really, and could buy some time. So I had that done. Spun my wheels for a couple of years because it's 6 months. You can't touch a club, can't do anything, no rotational, no lifting, no exercising. And then start working back into it. So and I tried to play and it was worse. And I found out the first surgery didn't go quite as planned. And there was a screw misplaced and one was screwed into my psoas muscle. And so it was a nightmare. And so I had to have it redone. And after the revision, I was great. I was great. I could tell a difference literally the moment I woke up. I mean, I was still sore because it was an 8-hour surgery and they go through the front and the back. It was a big deal, but, and I've been pretty good. I get a stiff back, but I think most people that are 52 years old and are probably wake up in the morning and feel a little bit like crap until they get moving and then you're fine. So that revision really helped a lot.
Is that something similar to what Tiger went through?
Yeah, I think the same. I think he had the same. I think he might have had a different level, maybe the level up from mine. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but yeah, he had the same thing.
We got a text here from Bill on the Titanamar text line. He wants to know, speaking of majors, what it was your favorite major to play in?
I would say the Masters. I mean, it's hard to, that's the one as a kid, you're always going, I got a 4-footer to win the Masters. And that's the most special. I only played in 5 of them, but it was every time you stepped on the grounds there, it was just like you were in another world. And it's to me, the most prestigious. I would say that, then the PGA, having a father who's a club pro. And that's what the PGA of America is all about, basically about the club pros. And that was always a special one.
Another text here from Joe on the Titanamar text line. He wants to know, Dudley, what is your favorite course that you've ever played?
Well, I used to say that it's not a course that either one of them are courses that we play a tournament on, but San Francisco Golf Club, not far from where they just had the PGA, for years had been my favorite. But I played 2 years ago, I played a course called Peachtree in Atlanta, and that shot up to my favorite. It's one of the most special places I've ever been.
Well, Dudley, after PGA Tour, you got into coaching. You were a volunteer coach here at the University of Florida.
Yep.
What made you want to do that?
I just love helping people who want to get better at golf. I mean, I haven't ever been a true teacher, obviously, but living in the golf world and playing pro-ams, you're constantly your buddies, you're constantly helping people. And the things that I've spent my whole life learning, trial and error, some of it, but learning from different coaches and learning what works for me and different things. I just wanted to be a part of the program again. And the kids at Florida, obviously they're all super talented players, but they have so much to learn as far as being more versatile with every club in their bag. And that's basically what I help them with. I've kind of turned into a short game coach, so to speak, up there. I do a lot of wedge work and different shots around the greens, different techniques, because there's an infinite amount of shots and scenarios in the game of golf that you need to be prepared in. And if once you get to that high level, those little things that, most people wouldn't think are a big deal could be what separate you. You get a certain lie on, once in a tournament, but if you're not comfortable, don't know how to play that around the greens, maybe make a bogey or maybe make a double instead of making a par or a bogey. And that one shot could be the difference.
So Dudley, once you turn 50, you were eligible to play on the senior tour.
Yeah.
You've been playing on it. You just recently had a hole-in-one, which we're going to show here on the tape here. But playing on the senior tour, I don't want to say, is there no pressure? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, you play 3 rounds, unless it's a major.
Yep.
There's no cut.
No cut.
So you're going to get a check, and it's more like going out with the buddies and just playing. But I know you want to win, but how is it playing on the senior tour?
It's definitely different. I mean, and it's, I'm sure the guys in the tour office won't like me saying this if anybody hears it, but I kind of equate it to kind of glorified exhibition golf. You know what I mean? It's a fairly closed tour. If you hadn't played the tour for a long time and played at a certain level or made enough money or a certain amount of wins, getting on there is pretty tough. And, but that being said, when you're wired a certain way competitively, you even though we're old and we don't move, we're getting fatter and we don't move so quick and don't hit the ball as far, your mind still thinks you're 28 years old and you want to go out and kick someone's butt and you don't want to play poorly. And it's, I don't feel mentally when I get on the first hole that it's really much different than a tour event, even though obviously it is. But it's a blast to play and be with the guys that I've been with for 30 years competing against.
And the senior PGA championship is this week, right?
Senior players. Yeah,
Senior
they canceled
players.
the senior PGA. Yeah. Senior players is this week. Yep.
Okay. I was telling DeMarco, and we had him on a couple months ago, during my heyday in the NFL, I used to play in an event in the Upper Montclair Country Club in New Jersey on the senior tour.
Yeah.
They have like 25 NFL players. We had to wear the Payne Stewart outfits,
Oh yeah.
And we played for different money for charity, but it was 5 days that I just look forward to every year, because they pretty much put a lot of the senior tour players in the same hotel with us. We had a big hospitality room, like Jim Colbert, Jim Dent, all these dudes would just sit down there and tell stories. I don't know why they got rid of that tournament, but it was a lot of fun for us. So how many hole-in-ones have you had?
That was my 14th.
14.
Yep.
First one on the senior tour?
First one on the senior tour. Yeah, I hadn't had one in like 10 years. I'd been on a drought. I kept joking with my son going, man, it's not going to be too long. I won't be able to reach many par threes.
Speaking of your son, your son is committed to come play golf here at the University of Florida, which has to be pretty dang cool for you.
Yeah, it's awesome. And a lot of people say that, he didn't have, he had to go to Florida, didn't he? Honestly, I mean, he could have gone anywhere he wanted to go. The fact that he wanted to try to play competitive golf at a high level, that was a win for me. I mean, it's just fun. Not that it was my dream for him, but he dreamt, because, honestly, I mean, like your boy, I'm sure he'd been going to games since he was 5 years old. So he was, I kind of planted the seed a long time ago to be a Gator fan, but the fact that JC and Mark gave him an opportunity, they took a chance on Ryan a year and a half ago when he wasn't very highly ranked in the golf world. And some of that was my doing, because I was kind of holding him back. He's a smaller kid and late to golf, really late to competitive golf. So I kind of kept him at a certain competitive level where he could have some success, not necessarily winning everything, but it was just appropriate for where he was at the time. I didn't throw him into some of these big tournaments, because I just felt like, golf's such a confidence thing that if he goes there and he's 14 years old and can only carry 210 yards or something, and he's playing against these kids that are 18 that are bombing it and they're shooting 68s and he's shooting 78, it might, it just wasn't ready for that yet. And this summer he had, even though most of the stuff's been canceled, he had a good month in end of June, early in middle of July, I guess. But and he's up to, I think, 30 or something in the country now. So JC and Mark are super pumped about that, because now they look a little smarter, I guess. But those rankings obviously don't mean a whole hell of a lot, because in about a week or so he's going to be in Gainesville and he's going to the next level, and that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I meant to ask you, what are your thoughts about when they redid Bostic? Do you like the changes? Do you like the course better now than when you were here in college?
It's definitely more challenging. It's in
better shape.
It's in way better shape. Yeah. When I was in school, we called it the pasture. Literally, that was the name. We called it the pasture. It was not very good. Now it's compared to when I was in school, it's Augusta National. I mean, it's amazing. And the superintendent out there does an amazing job. The green, ultimately as a golfer, if the greens are good, you can deal with the rest of it. And every time I go up there, the greens are great, and fairways are usually good. It's a landlocked piece of property that you can only do so much with. And I think they did a pretty good job of making it tougher, because some of the greens are pretty severe and you start missing areas. The problem for me with that golf course, especially nowadays for the guys on the team, not necessarily the public that plays it, is it's not challenging enough off the tee. Because if guys are struggling, they're smart enough to just aim way the hell over this way, left or right, and not miss it, where the trouble is. It doesn't force you to man up and hit good shots, and you don't get penalized enough for poor tee shots for the, the competitive, guys on the team, the girls on the girls team as well too. So But there's not much else, it's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. You can't make it any longer really. And these guys hit it so far nowadays. If you don't have an option to take them to 74 or 500, it's kind of a pitch and putt for them,
Yeah, I play hole 12. I hit my drive down the 10 fairway because then it opens it up wide open to try to hit the green in 2 on 12.
Yeah.
That's kind of silly, but
that's and you stand up on 10, and if you're gagging, the wind's blowing left or right. Trust me, I did it too when I was out. You just aim it over the left rough and just say, I'll take my chances. And, if you, that 9, number 8, you can hit it over number 3, it's things like that. So, if for these kids trying to get better and, driving the ball in play is a huge deal, and not forcing them to kind of to do that, it sometimes is a little tough.
Last thing for you, Dudley. I know you're a big football fan. You got any good Coach Spurrier stories you can tell us?
Gosh, I do have one good one. It's years ago, we used to have a charity event over in St. Augustine, or we did it a couple times. I don't think it happened a ton, but so a bunch of the old tour guys would come back, and Coach Spurrier came this one time, and we're all up in a conference room playing cards, and I've never been a big card player, but we're in this game, and I think it was called 21 or something like that, and it was a card game that I quickly learned financially could get out of hand quickly. Like it just things double, and I can't remember exactly how we played it, but Coach is obviously, you know him better than I do, but he's this incredibly competitive person, whether it's golf course cards, anything. And he got his rear end handed to him in this card game quickly in about 20 minutes. And he gets up and kicks the chair over, and I'm out of here. He walks out, slams the door. And then we're all sitting there, I'm only 23 or 4 years old. And, just being around Coach was kind of cool. And I was a little intimidated being around him. And, he just lost it left. And then 10, 15 minutes later, he walks back in the door. He's like, I'm back in. So he just came back into the game. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, he's a piece of work, no doubt about it. Well, Dudley, how many scheduled events are you scheduled to play in this year on the senior tour?
Well, I'm playing this week, and then we have they're kind of new tournaments in Missouri. They're basically back-to-back, kind of like what the regular tour did in Muirfield.
Okay.
But they're actually even closer. There's 2 of them in Missouri after that, and then they're basically 2 in like 8 days. So it's kind of a neat little thing. But and then after that, we just keep going. We go to South Dakota, and so I've got probably about 8 or 10 starting this week.
Living out of a suitcase, huh?
Oh yeah, it's done my whole life. It's part of the thing. But I get home, I get stir crazy. So.
Yeah. Well, Dudley, we appreciate you joining the show, man. Stay safe, play well this week. We'll be watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Shane. Thank you. Take care. Good to be with you.
Gator great Dudley Hart joined us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. August is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Really want to thank Zach Abolverdi and my man Dudley Hart joining us. I love talking golf, as you people know. Also, this day in sports is brought to you by the Best Restoration. Fires, hurricanes, or leaking pipes, whatever causes havoc in your home or business, call the best at the Best Restoration. 352-353-0768. This day in sports, back in 1997, the Atlanta Braves signed Greg Maddux to a record 5-year, $575 million deal. That would be very it's nowhere near what these guys are signing for these days. But we got a couple of Facebook Live comments here I need to catch up with. Again, I want to thank Dudley Hart for joining us. Rick says, nothing hurts more than back problems. I agree with that. I thought I had another Facebook Live. Jeff says here, Facebook Live brought to you by Melton Law, where you matter most. He says, I belong to Lagorce Country Club down in Miami. One of these things, they go away. Fred says, Dudley is a Gator great. Yes, he is. But folks, don't forget tomorrow, we got Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show talking college football. But we're going to have a former Gator great offensive lineman who played with the Tennessee Titans, lives up in Nashville, has a couple of bars up there. He's a character now. Big Zach Pillar will be joining us on the show. Make sure you tell your friends to follow us on Facebook Live. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Again, I want to thank Zach Abolverdi and Dudley Hart for joining the show. Today's show is going to be a wrap, and it's brought to you by Wrap Spot. Stay safe, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Dudley Hart playing the par 3 today, 188 yards.
Uphill, hole location over on the left-hand side of the green. Good swing by Dudley.
Our second hole-in-one this week. Did it go in? Ernie Els had one at the 8th on Friday, and Dudley Hart with a hole-in-one.